What the Actual Fork podcast is co-hosted by two intuitive eating registered dietitians, yours truly, Sammy Previtt, owner of Fine Food Freedom, and Jenna Warner, owner of Happy Strong Healthy.
We can't stand diet culture bullshit and love keeping it real. Our mission is for all humans to believe that they are made for so much more than chasing a smaller body. We are also here to share with you that food can be fun and pleasurable again.
Although we are medical professionals, we are human beings too. We are not afraid to share our deepest, darkest secrets and how many years of our lives were taken by diet culture.
We started this podcast so no human has to feel alone in their journey towards food freedom. So get comfy and join us for a casual convo where you can expect to laugh, cry, learn, and grow.
We are so grateful that you're here. So if you enjoyed this podcast and want to connect further, we invite you to follow along on Instagram at WhatTheActualForkPod and subscribe, rate, and review our podcast so we can continue to share this message with more and more people. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of What the Actual Fork podcast. Sam, you hopped off at one point, which maybe we'll address in this little section. But when you hopped on, you said you had a lot to share. So I am just going to sit back and listen.
Oh,
how
goodness.
are
you? I'm just laughing because I was texting with you yesterday, voice memoing with you yesterday, and this was like before shit hit the fan.
Really? Because it was pretty shitty at that point.
Literally and figuratively. Oh yeah, that was a whole nother unrelated thing. So the two things I'll share, and I'm gonna put like a trigger warning on if you don't like hearing about or talking about throw up or vomit, you can just skip these next few minutes. So long story short, we're like 99.999% sure that we overfed Sienna. She is just housing food right now. It's amazing watching her she signs every 2 seconds, eat and more. And like, just, that's all she wants. So we're like, all right, sister, like whatever you want, you got it. Like, and so she is eating wonderfully. She doesn't even have a tooth yet, which is crazy. And she just gums it and chows it down. And last night she had dinner a little late and I was like, oh shit, we're going to be really pulling, dinner and bath time really close. And then bed. And then so she gets a bottle like really close together. We also just like did the next size up on the nipple cap for her bottles. So now like it's flowing quick. So she downed her bottle up, she, ate dinner, happy at bath, chugged her bottle down. Totally normal though. Flipped her over onto we're chilling in the chair. We're rocking back and forth, a little burp here and there, totally normal. When I tell you the amount of vomit that came out of this girl, it didn't make a noise. I didn't even know it was happening until I felt it. Her head just came up slightly off my shoulder. Jenna, it never stopped. It was flowing. I'm going to send you a picture. I could send it to you now if you want to live respond to it. Respond. The fuzzy soft pink blankie that you got us with the unicorn covered into the cracks of the chair. I think she stopped and took like a breath and then it kept going. I didn't make a noise. I didn't know what to do. So I just called Luke and I was like, can you please come into the room? I am covered in vomit and don't know what to do. And
for my picture.
And she vomited. I swear it felt like 1 minute of this happening. And then just put her head on my shoulder. Didn't miss a beat. And just and I was like, is she dead? Like, did she, I was so confused. And then Luke comes in, grabs her, turns the light on. And she's like, oh my God, Sammy. I just sent you the picture. All the way, my armpit is soaked. It took me hours to clean the blankets, the chair. We had to take oh my gosh. Okay. So that happened. And with our construction, we've been in the middle of everyone's going to think I'm so disgusting and it's fine. This is what life is. We have a gnat infestation in our home. Because of the construction and Florida heat and moisture, when I tell you there are so many gnats in our house, I am at my wit's end. I'm just slapping. They're everywhere. So I'm cleaning vomit, gnats are everywhere. And I'm what the fuck is my life? Like, what is my life? But I will say that mama is headed on a flight at 7 a.m. to Penn State tomorrow.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
And I
Not
love you.
looking
I
back.
love you, Luke, but good luck. Like, mama's out of here.
I thought you were going to make a comment that you hadn't showered, because I'm pretty sure you posted something about hot yoga and you're still in the same outfit as your
Yes,
TikTok.
hot yoga was this morning. I showered from the vomit. Don't worry. I went straight to the shower. Like, there was no way. Like, I can't even explain to you how covered I was other than that picture. And I'm glad I took a picture because I was like, I have to. Like, it just makes the story so much better.
Wait, has Sienna ever pooped in the bathtub? Has that happened to you yet?
Not yet, but I do know you've told me that, and I'm like waiting for it to happen.
My favorite, lack of favorite, I should say, memory is like the second time it happened, Matt was doing the bath and I just hear him go, not again.
You just knew.
I just like scoop everything in up and threw it away. I'm like, I'm not cleaning this. Like, I'm not.
Being a parent is just like so wild. Like, and I was so looking forward to like putting her down. I had so much work that I had to catch up on. And I was just cleaning vomit for like over an hour. And then I'm like, I need to eat dinner, but I'm going to throw up at the thought of anything right now. So I don't know what to say, but how are you?
Up to the hype.
And I told you, I had to say that. I couldn't tell you anything. It's too good. And honestly, though, I feel like between you and me constantly sharing these stories, like, don't get me wrong, like I was a little stressed in the moment, but all you can do is laugh. Like, what are you going to do? You have no control. You're the parent. Like, I forget, like, I'm the parent. I'm the one in charge. So you just have to buckle down and deal with it and move on.
I know, it's really wild. Sometimes I'm like, am I supposed to be the parent? Like, I don't think that I'm good at this right now. It's so crazy. I'm not even going to try and top that. I think that we can go right into the description of today's episode because it is a longer episode. There is so much to talk about. And I think before we get into any of that, and also thank you so much for sharing. But before we get into any of that, we do need to put like a massive trigger warning on this episode, just because there is a lot of talk of eating disorder behaviors. There's talk of weight loss, intentional weight loss as it pertains to the military, and ways that it was achieved in a specific time that's super pertinent to the story. But if you are not in a space of your recovery or your journey where that is supportive or safe for you, definitely skip this episode after you just listen to the poop and vomit. Just don't proceed after this. It's a beautiful story that maybe would better serve you at a different time.
And to add to that, I will say if you are actively struggling with an eating disorder, we do have resources for you. You can go to allianceforeatingdisorders.com or theprojectheal.org. Those are two eating disorder organizations that have so much support, so many resources. So again, that's allianceforeatingdisorders.com or theprojectheal.org.
Amazing. So today's guest was absolutely incredible. She was in the Navy, and we'll get to all of her incredible details in a second, but I had to share it. The whole time I kept thinking, when she kept talking about the Navy, my grandfather, who was in the Navy, he passed away quite a few years ago, but he used to tell us, my mom's going to laugh so hard when she listens to this, but he used to tell us all the time that he like snuck on the ship. Like, he wasn't old enough to like be on the ship, but like his dad signed his papers and like got him on the ship like way back in the day. And that he was like the worst, quote unquote, in the Navy, and that his commanding officer used to like put him in like the basement barracks of the ship and used to say like, Nelson, if this ship goes down, you're going down with it.
I love it.
And that is where I get all of my fight from. He was also a boxer in the Navy. Like, he was on the boxing team. So I channel him whenever I go to a Rumble class or do a fight camp in my garage. But anyways, Sam, tell everybody about Leah Stiles, who was the guest on our podcast today, and how she found you.
Yeah. So I don't even know if we should read her bio because I feel like it encompasses so much of the story.
Yes.
But Leah Stiles, you can find her on Instagram at sailor_breaking_anchor break_chains. Leah reached out to us. We shared in the episode. So very briefly, I'll say, she reached out to us on LinkedIn. She had found, I believe, Find Food Freedom on TikTok and was just starting to implement intuitive eating into her eating disorder recovery treatment because she was ready for it at that time. She had done enough at inpatient and whatnot. But Leah shares just so much detail in her story. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a sister, which we'll learn about today, of the camaraderie of active duty, and she's a sailor. She's amazing. And so what I love about this episode too is, sometimes we'll have people on this podcast that I think there's great opportunity to have people that have large followings and have established businesses, and Leah is just in the starting point of, this figuring out what it's going to look like and how she can support active duty. But I love how she says on our episode, she's a human and she's here to share her story. And that's what we all are. And I think it's so powerful of what she's sharing with us, and just normalizing eating disorders in the military, normalizing how much they are really, I don't know if cultivated is the right word there, but it's just so normalized. And so
the behaviors are so normalized,
yes,
but the actual eating disorders are not allowed.
Correct.
So there's that
yes.
dichotomy of it, of like the behaviors are very much encouraged in order to stay active duty. But if you are, what you'll hear in this episode, if you are found out, you're no longer, what did she call it? They process you out of the military. So like, it's a very interesting, again, I'm drawn to this word dichotomy. I'm probably using it wrong, but it's like a very interesting like balance of, you need to be X, Y, and Z, but you can't be, right? Like you can't actually be sick, but you need to be whatever else. And I think that's something that she does talk about. And a question that comes up for me that we didn't get a chance to ask Leah, but maybe we can have another guest on who's an expert in this as well, is like, what is the screening before entering the military that, that you have to pass in order to get to that place, to then pass like the physical tests and
what's the mental health screening?
What is the screening to know that somebody is safe to be in that space? Because that's like a big question that I have, and there's no judgment. It's just curiosity around what that process is that I know nothing about. But before we get into the episode, the last thing I will say is that, again, Leah shares her story of active eating disorder while in the military to now where she has founded a company called Freed, Freed, Freedom, Recovery, and Education for Eating Disorders. And her mission is to unapologetically help every single service member suffering with eating disorders. And she is wholeheartedly committed to establishing awareness, education, and support resources for her brothers and sisters in arms. And she's bringing light to the darkness and supporting service members in the battle against eating disorders, which is, that gives me the chills. It's like so poetically said. And this episode is a beautiful story, and we hope that you guys enjoy hearing it as much as we did.
Leah, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so excited to have you here for a much, much needed conversation.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
But we're going to jump right in. Before we get your story and really get into why you're here today, I would love to hear from you, Leah. We would love to hear from you. Our listeners would love to hear if you have a most recent or most profound what the actual fork moment related to diet culture, related to the media. Maybe you were scrolling, maybe it was a conversation you overheard or something that was said to you that just stopped you in your tracks and said, what the actual fork is this?
Okay, so I am a part of multiple social media groups where enlisted members come together and they talk about advice and mentorship and guidance. In the female enlisted one, there was a young lady that posted anonymously, and this is not uncommon. And she posted that her upcoming PRT is coming up, and I'll explain what that is in just a second. And she had a child 4 months ago, and she was desperate to get into regulations because you get publicly weighed and you get publicly taped if you don't make weight, like in a room full of your coworkers or your junior sailors, or so it's a really stressful thing. Even people that are well into passing stress this. And so everybody, you know, kind of understood and tried to offer her the best advice that they had. And I looked at the advice and I said, what the actual fork? But I didn't say fork.
You're allowed to say fuck on this podcast, just so you know.
I said, what the fuck? And it just really showed me the culture of the military lifestyle as far as like health and food. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, we put size before health. You know, we don't say, you know, get to this weight healthy. We just say, get to this weight. A lot of the feedback that this young lady received was intermittent fasting, calories under 1,000 while extreme exercising. After you extreme exercise, go straight to the sauna, sweat it out, take laxatives. It was crazy to me that that's some of the advice that I received when I came in 2001. And here we are, it's 2023. And this is still the unhealthy advice that people are just, they're giving with the right intention. They want to see her succeed. There's so many consequences to failing your PRT for your career, and not to mention your humiliation alone, but just the pride that you take in the military and you know, looking sharp in uniform and being professional. So they wanted to help her, and it just really made me sad to see that that's how we're helping right now.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And holy shit, like you said, like you got this advice 20 years ago, but I'm still stuck on you saying that this woman is 4 months postpartum. You know, like you can even remove the military from the situation, but obviously that is such a huge part of this. But to think about being 4 months postpartum and these things being thrown in your face, holy shit. Holy shit.
I don't even know what to say, because I think the dichotomy, is that the right word? The dichotomy of like this issue is like the intention of what like you're saying. And I don't even know what PRT is yet, but like the backlash of not meeting that is being kicked out, right?
Not on your first try.
Okay.
And, you know, that changes at different times based on force needs. You know, sometimes the military needs more people, and so they kind of flex it out a little bit to keep you longer and give you a chance. And at different times in my career, they were trying to thin it out, no pun intended. And so, you know, it changes. But at the very least, it has huge implications on your evaluation. And then your evaluation is what's used for promotion, retention. So it might not be like immediately directly affected to getting kicked out, but it's a slippery slope.
Okay, so obviously you have a ton of ties to the military. I think if I have it correctly, Leah, you reached out to me on LinkedIn, right? And you sent me a message, and you're like,
there's our kudos for getting back on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, we've been talking about Jen and I've been talking about LinkedIn a lot off air. And hey, LinkedIn, looks like you need to sponsor us now. But I got this amazing message from you, and I sent it right over to Jenna and our team at What the Actual Fork, and I was like, we have to have this amazing human on the podcast, because we've gotten many requests on this. And like we shared with you off air, Jenna and I have supported active military, you know, and it is such a hard thing to talk about, because like you already brought light to, the intention of why people want to shrink their body is so they can actively serve their country and do a job that they so deeply believe in and want to do, and is their passion. And it can also be contributing to eating disorder and extreme mental health implications. So you can take as long as you want. We would love to hear your story, Leah, of what brought you to doing this work now that you're doing, of bringing awareness to eating disorders in the military, and just anything that you can share with us of what you personally experienced.
And I think just to add on to that, I like in this episode today, we are talking to people in active military and also those post. So I think it's super clear, or it's super important to say, you know, who this episode really can help and who needs to hear it, because your story has both, which I think is so powerful.
I grew up in a really intense home. There was a lot of trauma. My mother was schizophrenic, and I was in and out of foster care, and I was in and out of like different treatment facilities, like they call it RTF, a residential treatment facility. I lived there for 3 years. So this whole time that I was going through all of this, I was like, as soon as I'm old enough, I'm joining the military. Like, I want to serve my country. Like, I'm going to have a purpose. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I just knew it. I enlisted the Navy in 2001, just before 9/11. So I had just completed boot camp and was sent to my A school, my training school at Fort Meade, Maryland. And 9/11 happened, and it just kind of shook everything. And that's just kind of like where the I guess turmoil kind of started. So for the first, I want to say 10 years, I was just plugging away. What I went to school for initially was to be a Navy photographer. That is the coolest job ever. I want you to picture aircraft carriers out to sea and jets landing and taking off, and me on the flight deck with my, with my hearing protection and just taking pictures of all of that. I did already have my eating disorder. I was diagnosed with anorexia at the age of 12. By the time I was 14, it was more of a purging disorder, not quite bulimia. So I want to be specific on that, because to be diagnosed with bulimia, you must have both binging and purging. And I was more of like an anorexic purging kind of person. So, and I only bring that up because back in those days, this was 30 years ago, nobody knew such a diagnosis. There was no such thing. Bulimia is what you saw on Lifetime channels, and that was it, that I recall, So I did pretty well at hiding that when I was first joining the Navy. I definitely hid it from my recruiter, and I hid it through boot camp. The first PRT, which is the physical readiness test that I had to take after my daughter Ayana was born, because back then we only had 6 months to get back into regulations. So everything your body does for 9 months, you got 6 months to undo it. I failed the weight. And when you fail the weight, it leads to the next step, is what we call rope and choke. And it's kind of that, you have to lift your shirt in front of the males, the females, the upper leadership, the lower leadership, in front of everybody. And you get taped, you get measured around your stomach, around your neck, and around the biggest part of your waist. So a group of people comes over, or your hips. A group of people comes over and helps discuss what the biggest part of your hips are. And that's a great conversation to have. So I passed that. I passed the body fat taping. And that allowed me to continue the rest of the physical readiness test, which is 1.5 miles running for time. And at that time it was push-ups and sit-ups. Disclaimer, a lot has changed with the military in the 2 years I've retired. So I want to say that it might be different now. But that was my experience, and it mortified me, as somebody that already struggled with body dysmorphia and just the drive for perfection and to be considered professional and respected. I just made a decision that I was not going to put myself in that position again. I was going to do everything that I knew how to not be there. Unfortunately, everything that I knew how was very unhealthy coping mechanisms. And then I was looking around me, as we were talking about in the actual fork moment, the culture was reinforcing a lot of what I thought was okay too. We would check in on each other and come in, and it was camaraderie. Like there was so many times throughout my career that that shrinking our body was something we did together through camaraderie and in unhealthy ways. That I don't know what it'll take to educate everybody that this just how unhealthy it is. So, you know, I kept going through that the first 10 years and things were, you know, just plugging away. I got promoted and promoted and promoted, and I was just so proud of myself. And I was named Sailor of the Year 2 years in a row. And that's a very high honor. And so to get it consecutively 2 years in a row, I just knew I was doing well. In 2010, I got into a verbal altercation with my mother. On the advice of a therapist, I wanted to discuss with her the effects that she had on me in my childhood. You know, not looking for an apology, not looking, I guess, just for a little bit of accountability. I think I was looking for, just like now at this point, I was a mother of 2 children. And I really just wanted to say that, you know, as mothers, any decisions that we make, any of them, affect our children in some kind of way, positive or negative. I must have said the wrong thing. And she told me to leave the house immediately. I did. And I went up the street, and then I got a phone call that she killed herself. So that was a catalyst for major eating disorder relapse. But I tried to keep it together. Just a few weeks later, I was selected for Chief Petty Officer initiation. So that's where you go from E6 to E7 in the Navy. And that's like a really defined step in the Navy. And it comes with 6 weeks of initiation before you are promoted. The initiation is really intense. And at the end, we're told everybody passes the weigh-ins. Everybody, like, you're a team, you work together, like you fail together, you win together. Everybody passes. So I did the 5 weeks of initiation, was doing great, was considered the leader, you know, real proud of myself. It feels weird to say those things about myself, but I was really doing great. And then the last week, we were put into a barracks room for like the final training, just 24/7 and whatever. Well, in order to get pinned, so you've probably seen those pictures like on social media, like where you get your anchors pinned on you, big moment. You must first pass the BCA and PRT. Well, there was some of us that were thicker than others. And so the original Chief Petty Officers, the ones that were training us to become Chief Petty Officers, left us in the barracks room with tools. These tools were hemorrhoid cream to rub on our stomachs and saran wrap to put around the saran wrap. We were only allowed to leave to go to run laps and then go to the sauna, run laps and go to the sauna and come back. So we were drinking some solution that had like sodium something in it, and it was dehydrating, and we were going to the bathroom all the time. People were going to the bathroom while they were running and in the sauna. It was crazy. I don't know if I'm proud or ashamed, but we all passed. We all made weight, tape, and passed the PRT, which was, again, I keep coming back to the word camaraderie, but that's a really big thing. And, you know, we call each other brother and sister. Like, that's the kind of network that we have. It's a family network. And as I stated earlier, I didn't really start off with the best idea of family. And so I was really looking for that in the military and redefining what I thought was family. Both personally, you know, I did get married and have my children, and great family, best husband in the world, who served as well. We both retired on the same day after 20 years. So I developed a family, and, you know, I was really looking for family in the military, and I will say I found it.
I just can't thank you enough for sharing everything that you're sharing with us right now. Also, we need to get you on with some type of producer to either write a book, have a movie about your life. I don't know.
Book.
Oh, you did?
What?
Okay. Well, we haven't got there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
So yes, I definitely, and something I just want to take note of that I wrote down, and Jenna, if you want to say anything too before
I saw
she
yours. I was watching.
continues, yes, is just, I wanted to state how, you know, eating disorder is among the deadliest of mental illnesses. It's second to opioid overdose. And I just want to bring light to, when people are struggling with eating disorder, a lot of times we don't know because there's such high achievers. You talked about how you won Sailor of the Year 2 consecutive years, which is such a high honor. You were the leader of your pack and all these different scenarios and these stories. And so I think I like to use the analogies when people are describing eating disorders is like, we can see a broken leg, right? We can see a broken wrist. We see the cast, but with eating disorders, we don't see it. And oftentimes they come packaged with perfectionist personalities or really, really high achievers. And so I just wanted to shed light on that because you can be, on paper or on a resume or looking at the trophies or the pins or all the things, you can look like, oh my gosh, she has it all together. And she has one of the deadliest mental health issues going on right now and needs so much support and care. And the military is reinforcing some of the most unhealthy habits that I've ever heard spoken. And I want to put that trigger warning. We'll put a trigger warning on the episode in the beginning. But, these are beyond, like, we always talk about things that are promoted as like health promoting, but really they're disordered. This is just straight up like torture and some of the things that you're describing. And so I just can't, I want to say thank you for everything you're sharing. You're creating such an amazing space for those who I know are going to listen to this and just probably have tears come to their eyes to know that they're not alone with what they're going through.
That's what I want. That's what I want so bad.
Oh my God.
Not only do I want to show them that they're not alone, but I want to show the military community that this is happening with your leaders, your high achieving perfectionist leaders. People have done a lot of work about coming out about their mental health issues and their PTSD and their anxiety. And that's great. But I never seen anybody come out and talk about their eating disorder. And so that's why I felt it was really important for me to kind of break my silence.
I'm like so blown away, and also just want to bring light to two things. Is one, I'm sure there's a lot of conflicting feelings and emotions of like, but I feel so much pride in what I'm doing and what I'm serving and how I am, spending my time doing something incredible for our country. So I'm sure that's a very conflicting feeling. And then the other thing that Sam really touched on, and the baby in my belly right now is moving around so much. It's like the beginning of me feeling it, that I'm like, this story is really like speaking to my soul clearly. But the other piece that Sammy really started to touch on too is like, one of the biggest concerns with eating disorders is often what you've just described, which is the connection to increasing your ranks, winning awards, being this high achiever, doing all of these things while your eating disorder was also skyrocketing. So it's very hard to separate who I am as a person when I get rid of this eating disorder. Like, can I still be this high achiever, right? And obviously the answer is yes, but it's very difficult from clients that I've worked with and from research that we've done and hearing this story. Like, you see why people connect their happiness and success to this other piece of themselves that's such a huge part of themselves in that process, which is it just makes the whole untangling quite challenging.
And I'll add one more step to that.
Please.
Thing you just said is so spot on. Additionally, seeking help or treatment for an eating disorder disqualifies you from service. You are no longer allowed to serve. You're not allowed to join with an eating disorder, and you're not allowed to stay with an eating disorder. So even once you realize like, hey, things are out of control, or this is really bad, or I'm unhealthy, you risk your whole career. And that was my livelihood. That was my purpose. That was my life. That was my family, eating dinner, that was everything. So I couldn't risk stopping the career, midway and then not having my retirement and all the things. I get to be retired now, but you can't risk that. And so it's sad that we're, trying to encourage people to talk about this and come out about it, but there's really just so many like barriers to doing that too.
Is that why, and I would assume why you feel like no one is speaking about it who is active, because of they will lose their job. They will. And I know Jenna and I have both supported people under the radar where they come to that conclusion of, do I stop doing what I love in order to save myself truly at the end of the day?
Do I save myself or do I provide for my family?
and my country, right? Because I can imagine that's a part of it, because that's your entire mission and purpose. So it's so hard.
Well, one of the big questions that I have too, though, is like, first of all, knowing many people in the military must be suffering if these are the way that they have to achieve certain things. But how do you fight and exercise when you're starving? Like, I have it
And
written down.
extremely dehydrated.
How to be in fighting form without being fed is what I wrote down.
I used to, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of dehydration too with athletes. I used to service a lot more professional athletes in my previous practice, and dehydration impacts your athletic performance.
Oh my God.
Drastically. And you're talking about taking these salt washes and saunas, and it's like, how?
Right. When you said the salt water piece, I kept thinking of the scene in Wedding Crashers when he puts the saline solution in the guy's drink. I'm like, that's what it was. Like, oh my God. And it has that immediate impact on you. But yeah, that's a piece that I just like, how do you protect and fight and, stand up when...
That's funny that you say that, because looking back, again, part of my reputation was how physically fit I was. I was running half marathons, full marathons. People, again, congratulated me on that. But I was running out of an obsession. I wasn't running for the enjoyment and the beauty of running. I was running to shrink my body and to rid it of any extra fluids, calories, anything I could get out. But I did, at the end of my full marathon, I actually ran it through Disney, which is where I live now. I was so dehydrated that, all the crazy things started happening with my body, and I did have to seek treatment. But of course, I went to seek treatment at a civilian center because I couldn't let the military be like tipped off and use my military insurance or go to a military hospital and have that come back, which is about to be what I'm about to tell you did happen. Well, right after I got pinned, I was thinking, oh, I could probably fall apart now. Just take some time off, just fall apart for a little bit and then get myself together. Well, I immediately received orders to combat camera. And that's a really cool command where, you train for combat to be a combat photographer. But my eating disorder was at its peak, absolutely at its peak. So what started as purging once a day ended up purging for Leah 8 to 10 times a day. And I did physical damage to myself. I had bleeding in my esophagus, and that scared me so much. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to stop. Like, that's so scary. Like that could really happen to me, because I definitely thought I was a professional at this. And I went to the civilian hospital again, and I got treatment there. I messed up the billing because I was trying not to use my military insurance. And very long story short, the bill ended up with my commanding officer at Combat Camera. So I got called into the office, and he was like, what is this? And I love being honest. It's one of the things that I really treasure about myself. Like, it's one of my best attributes. But instantly I try to think of a lie or cover up or whatever. And so I did. I started trying to talk around it. And then he was like, well, several of your coworkers have reported seeing you, purge in the bathroom, or, he didn't say purge, but he was like vomiting in the bathroom, and I can't have that in this building. And I was like, okay, I won't anymore. And this was the same leader that named me Sailor of the Year 2 years in a row. And my husband, when he was in Iraq with my husband was his personal security driver. So they had a bond. Our family, we knew each other. He was a leader, and it wasn't unprofessional, but we did have a bond. And he stood me at attention, and he yelled at me, and he said, there's no place in his Navy for me. And then he started processing me out. So that was at the 10-year mark. I fought getting processed out. I called it discrimination. because in my mind, okay, let's understand this justification. In my mind, we provide sailors the opportunity in place to smoke cigarettes whenever they need or want. Even on ships, we have a special little smoke room for ships. And so I was thinking to myself, well, if other sailors can have a coping mechanism in smoking, which is very unhealthy, but not illegal, then why can't I have my own coping mechanism that is unhealthy but not illegal? And so that's that part of the justification when you're still like, that was my justification. So I managed to stay. And, but that led me to be even more secretive, like with everybody, because now it was just so scary. I saw what could happen if a leader found out. I saw what could happen if I was exposed. And then I was just determined. I should say I was determined to get better, but that's just not how my mind worked. I was determined not to get caught again. So we'll fast forward because you'll have to read the book. We'll fast forward to 2016. I was preparing to be transferred to an aircraft carrier, an aircraft carrier that I dreamed of. I built my team. I was ready for it. I was going to be the departmental LCPO of the media department, which is like awesome job. And then I had 32 sailors underneath me. And most of them I had mentored. So it was really cool that we were all coming together to be on the same ship, in the same department. And the ship was just a few months out from deploying. And so it was pretty much my job to get everybody prepared and get ready for the mission. It's all about the mission. So when I did a sea duty screening, and that's when they do, it's sort of like a yearly physical health exam. I did my screening and passed everything on my screening, except it got flagged for when I was seeking therapy after my mother died. It got flagged because there were words like eating disorder, purging, things like that in there, and that's a trigger word. So my orders got declined, and I literally felt like it was the end of the world for me. Like it had caught me, and I was devastated. Okay. I was just devastated. And, so me being Leah, I can never take no for an answer. I'm so driven and determined. I made an appointment with the triad on the ship. So that's the top three. So the captain, the executive officer, and the CMC. And I went there to convince them that I would be a major asset to their command and they needed me. So I got an appointment, but the CEO and the XO were unavailable. And so I got an appointment with the CMC and with the SMO, the ship's medical officer. I met with the SMO first to get him to sign the form so then I could go meet with the CMC. Oh, I won him over. Look at this big smile and like lots of jokes, and I'm funny and I'm charming, and I just funnied him up. And so he, within 3 minutes, signed me off, and I was like, okay, perfect. So now I'm going to meet with the CMC. Well, remember earlier when I described that the chief's petty officer mess is like a brother sister thing, and so I'm thinking like hit him with the brother sister thing, like, hey bro, like I'm trying to get on your ship. I'm going to be great. You're going to need me. And I like really sold myself, and he saw right through it. He was the first leader that I've ever come across that pulled my bullshit card, and he pulled my bullshit card. And it shocked me, and I didn't know how to handle that. And I wanted to run. I didn't know whether to run, stay, go, pray, beg. I wasn't sure. But he decided to cut me a deal. The deal was that he would sign off on me coming back or coming to the aircraft carrier if I agreed to no purging on the ship and to meet with him and medical once a week. no, I'm sorry, him or medical once a week. So I was like, sure, like I can do that. No problem at all. Well, I could because I would just restrict during the day while I was on the ship and then, eat and purge when I got home until we deployed. So we deployed in January of 2017. Super cool experience. The deployment, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it was being away from family. I don't know what hit me so hard on that deployment, but it really hit me hard. And my eating disorder absolutely flared up. And I was able to, disguise it from him for about 3 months. And 3 months in, we were sitting at a Chief's Petty Officer breakfast, and he came in. I was sitting with everybody and I didn't have a plate in front of me. And so when he looked at me and saw I didn't have a plate, I was like, oh, Leah, time to cover this one up. So I get up and I go, it was a beautiful breakfast. And I made the biggest waffle with like everything on it. Like, I hadn't had a waffle before. So I was like, here I go. Like, I'm going for the waffle. And I put like syrup on it and chocolate sauce and chocolate chips and whipped cream. And I was like, look at me eating the waffle, So I sat down and I was eating the waffle and oh my God, panic, just panic. I was trying to fake eat it and didn't want anybody to like notice and like just all these things that like, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know, but he knew. And he came up and he stood over me and he was like, get in my office. And I was like, okay, I'll meet you there. And so he left and went, walking down the P-way, you got to think the ship is all like, rocking back and forth. And I panicked. And so I made the really unbrilliant decision to stop in the head, the bathroom, and purge that waffle because I didn't know how long I'd be in his office and I couldn't risk digesting those things. So I had to get it out. For me, I always happened to use a toothbrush and because I thought that was safe and better for my teeth and my throat. And, again, the misconstrued ideas that where you convince yourself you're doing it right and healthy. So I purged as quickly as I ever could, dried my face off, and then just rushed to his office. Right before I got to his office, I physically just got stuck in my tracks, like dizzy, nauseous. I leaned over and I kind of like fell into the bulkhead. That's what we call the wall. I like fell into the wall and like the junior sailors around me, because, everybody's going up and down the P-way, having to go where they go. And they're like, Senior Chief, are you okay? And I was like, I couldn't hear. My ears were going in and out, like clearly dehydrated. And, the purging didn't help. And I just kind of panicked and I got myself together. I made some kind of joke about how Senior Chief still doesn't have her sea legs. And I just got myself to just walk in the office, and he told the junior enlisted that was his aide to leave. And I was like, shit. And then he slammed the door, and then he literally looked at me and he said, you have lost your ever-loving fucking mind. And I'm done. I've given you every chance, every opportunity. You've talked me out of everything that I know is right, that I know medically, because he had a medical background. He was a corpsman. He was like, I know, and you can't convince me any further. And then I was like, no, one more chance, begging and whatever. And he was like, all right, Leah, then fine. Empty your pockets. And I was like, sure, I'll empty my pockets. Like, I've nothing to hide. And then I was like, oh my God, the toothbrush is in my pocket. And then I emptied my pocket and there was the toothbrush. And he was like, you're done. So he flew my husband to Bahrain to meet us when the ship pulled into Bahrain. And he tried to arrange for me to get treatment back stateside. It was just an unheard of thing. He had a lot of resources and a lot of networks, and but not a lot of this really hadn't been done. Getting an active duty member like immediate inpatient treatment, and TRICARE didn't know what to do, and the doctors didn't know what to do. And so when I got back, I managed to again, manipulate the situation. I canceled my TRICARE so that it wouldn't get approved for me to go anywhere. And I was just determined to get back to the ship. So that was 2017. And, I just held it together, and I got put on shore duty. They wouldn't let me return back to my deployed ship, which caused me like a lot of distress and guilt. I know what you're thinking, like, great, you can be home with your family and your kids. And it really is wonderful. But like, you got to think, I had a family out to sea too. And they needed me too. Sorry. So I felt like I was abandoning them, and they were trying to reach out to me and ask what's going on. And I couldn't really tell them, and I didn't want to let them down or make them worry while they're on a deployment. So I kind of just tried to still be a mentor for them and send them all the care packages and all the beautiful things that people out to sea really need. And I held it together again. So this was a theme, I just kept getting myself back together. Hold on stronger. One more day, make it a little longer. Just make it a little longer. I don't know what I was trying to make. I think at least my 20 years in my career, but I just couldn't admit what was going on with me. I wanted so bad to be the person that I was portraying. And I couldn't accept anything less or different.
Go ahead and take a deep breath and just thank you so incredibly much for everything that you are disclosing to us. So it sounds like 2017 was a really pivotal moment on that ship, and that officer was the first one, or that chief was the first one to kind of call your eating disorder out and say, like, I know better. So if you could kind of point us to, so when did you finally get to a moment where you're like, I have an eating disorder, I am sick, and I need to get well in order to serve everyone in my life and be the best possible person? What was that pivotal moment for you?
2018.
Okay.
2018. In January of 2018, my husband's best friend, he lived across the street, and my best friend's husband, you see the combo here, he was a command master chief as well, high ranking, and he was going through, something in his career. And long story short, his wife and I discovered him hanging in the shed. And that was a breaking point for me, because my family broke, my husband broke, my children broke, my best friend broke. And that broke me beyond repair. I ended up on a psychiatric hold for 72 hours where the command master chief from my ship showed up. And at this point, he was a force master chief, which is higher now. And he said, "Are you ready?" And I was like, I'm ready. I'm broke. I have an eating disorder. I need help. I'm ready. At that point, him, my doctors, my husband, my community, everybody was like, let's get her inpatient. Like, that was really the only option for me at that point. To, as far gone as I was, I needed the inpatient intervention, really. And what we went through to get me treatment was just unbelievable when I was finally ready. I will say that they got me inpatient at a place in North Carolina, and that they did accept TRICARE. But I do want to point out that was kind of a freak of nature, because I've tried many times since then, to seek treatment again at different points during relapses, not only for myself, but for other service members and veterans. And I can't make it happen anymore. Like, it was literally a miracle. Like, what he did and my family did and my providers did, they made it happen. And I can't unlock that magic again. That's my goal. I'm working on that. I want to make that available to every service member and veteran that needs it. Or appropriate treatment. Not everybody needs inpatient, but there's not even like, lower levels of treatment for eating disorders. Like, we have 12 nutritionists, and not even all of our nutritionists are familiar with eating disorders. Every PCM that we have, primary care manager, like on base and medical, they have zero knowledge knowledge of eating disorders. Our ship's doctors, the senior medical officer. So I guess that's where it transitions to what am I doing now? So I founded Freed, which is freedom, which I thought was important for the military tied there, recovery education for eating disorders. And so this is more specifically for me to work on getting support and resources for service members, all service members. Male, female, every color, large body, small body, low ranking, high ranking, all service members deserve treatment of all levels. And it's just not available right now. It's inadequate. The little things that they have thought of, they're just not relevant or adequate for what is actually needed. And so that's my mission. Everything that I went through up until that point has driven me in this mission, is that I'm not alone and they're not alone. And I don't want them to feel alone. And I want them to see that I am a senior chief and a leader, and I'm a human, and I have mental health issues, and I love my country. And I love my Navy. And I had an eating disorder.
Wow. I just, like Sammy said before, we cannot thank you enough for sharing your story, and the way that you just pulled that all together of who you are and who you're here to serve is just so incredibly powerful. And one of like the themes, I think, from this episode that I'd love to just kind of ask like a wrap-up question tied to this is like, there was a lot of talk of like the camaraderie that comes from the military, right? So your brothers, your sisters, you're there, you're supporting each other, and you need each other. And, even though there's like a lot going on, it's like, that is so similar to diet culture in general. Like, I just immediately think Weight Watchers, not comparing Weight Watchers to the military, but like the camaraderie of like, we succeed together and like supporting each other for the weight loss and all of the things that go on with it. It's just so real and so powerful how that like mindset that the diets and like keto and whatever else, like the identification of self tied to your body is just so strong. So as a final question, we would love to hear two things. One, where people can find you and connect with you. And two, if there's one thing that you want somebody who is either actively in service and struggling right now, or has left the service and is struggling right now, what is one tip that you would give them?
Okay. So that's actually, can I ask you a question first?
Always.
The answer to the second question is actually why I reached out to you guys, is how can we get intuitive eating to the military? Like, because that's what I want to offer them. That's what I want you to offer them. Like, that's been the biggest point of my recovery. I've been to hospitals and hospitals and hospitals, and I didn't get as far as I am in recovery, which is still, a work in progress. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get to where I am until I found Sammy and learned intuitive eating on TikTok. Short of like sharing TikToks with the military, like, I don't know, like I'd like to talk to you guys probably at a later time, but how to build that bridge.
Yeah. We should definitely connect afterwards on that. Some sort of in-service could be like a great place to start. Just like bringing that attention there if they're open to it. I think it's incredible.
And I was just going to add on that. I think it's, Jenna and I have these conversations all the time about how for us, we have a lot of listeners that are dietetic students, and we have this same conversation, obviously different military versus college, but it's how do we bring intuitive eating into the universities, right? Because all these students are learning nutrition. Just like you said, there might be nutritionists, there might be dietitians in the military, but they might not be certified with intuitive eating or eating disorder treatment, because that is a specialty. And so to answer your question, you're doing all of the right things. The first step to make great waves of change is awareness. We have to bring awareness. We have to be aware that there's even a problem to then bring in a solution. So I think you're taking all of the steps that you can. This podcast is going to reach so many. And like Jenna said, we will absolutely speak to you off air and figure out a way that how can we help and how can we start to integrate this? But also, thank you so much for saying that Find Food Freedom was such a helpful, tool for you in your journey, because that's, Jenna and I forget that when we're talking to computer screens and phones that people actually hear what we're saying. So to hear your story and where you're at right now in recovery is just amazing. So
I had a TikTok only to follow you. Like, I don't follow anybody else.
Well, give me a follow. Come on.
You got to give Jenna a follow too after today.
But in my lowest points, which were even up until a few months ago, like, you were the voice of reason for me. So I think that's what I'll explain is just like, if I had one tip for any service member, active duty, veteran, family member, dependent, anybody struggling with not just eating disorders, but disordered eating, it would be just find a person, find a somebody, and reach out to a voice of reason. If that's coming to my website, I'll help you find other resources. Or if you just have a trusted advisor, let somebody in, because eating disorders thrive on secrecy. And so the first step in, changing that for yourself is to allow your secret to come out just a little bit. And that's kind of what I did when I retired. I finally got the nerve to come out on social media to my whole family, to my whole network, everything on social media right at once. And I was just inundated with people that said Me Too. It was like the Me Too movement of eating disorders. And so that's it. I just want to let you know you're not alone. There's so many people that said Me Too. And so just find one of us and we can go through this together. It's a different battle for the military. It's a eating disorder battle, but you have battle buddies.
And I think that is so profound to just tell people, find the support that you need, right? And so, Leah, for those listening, where can they find information for Freed or find your story? Where should they go if they want to learn more?
Okay, so I just established a website, and so it's still in the works, but I'd love to have visitors and ideas and, anybody to let me know a direction and resources to put on there. But you can see it at freedfromed.org.
Awesome. All right, Leah. Well, we can't thank you enough for being here with us today. We will share the link in the resources page of this episode. And it sounds like we're going to have some off-air meetings too, to figure out how we can best support you too.
I love that. And your website is beautiful. The gallery is super inspiring.
I love it. And it matches your hair perfectly.
Yes, those vibes are so strong. Leah, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing everything with us. And we can't wait to get this out to the people who need to hear it. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of What the Actual Fork Pod. We know there are a lot of pods out there, and we are so grateful that you are here listening with us.
So if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, like, share with all of your friends and faves, and don't forget to rate and review and let us know what you want to hear more of. The more we hear from you, the more that we can make these episodes exactly what you want. We would also love to connect with you on Instagram at WhatTheActualForkPod.
We promise to continue to bring you the hottest topics, greatest guests, and the most fun you can possibly have fighting diet culture bullshit. We love you, we appreciate you, and we will see you next week for more fun.